You are now listening to the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr. welcoming you to the lap of Extra Mile for today, October 27th, 2022. And it is the home stretch of the motorsports calendar. NASCAR has 2 to go. Formula One has 3 to go. And we're going to talk about it here. And of course, help me talk about is my co-host, Christopher Lehman.
How are you doing tonight, Daryl?
I'm doing great. And if you're in the chat, make sure you get your comments in. We will read them out as the show goes on. I am feeling great. We are coming to the end of it, which is a bittersweet time when it comes to the racing season because all the championships are getting handed out, all the celebrations are coming up, but pretty soon we're going to have that gulf where there's like no racing for about a month from right there before Thanksgiving all the way up to the Rolex 24, or a little bit earlier if you watch bikes. And if you're watching some of the stuff like the World Superbike, or not World Superbike, sorry, World Supercross that's just starting, although I am struggling to figure out when that's going to be on TV. The season doesn't technically end, but as far as four wheels, we're right there at the end of it.
Yes, we are. It's been a very long season. It's been an interesting season in all of the motorsports that we cover, the big three. It's going to be nice to take off a couple weeks for ourselves too, but I'm already looking forward to the Daytona 500 in 2023. But let's get this one wrapped up first.
I cannot wait until we get to the Rolex 24 next year with the hypercars coming up. Obviously, we'll have new things in NASCAR. There's a lot of new teams and drivers going places in NASCAR. And, of course, whatever the new Formula One car is going to look like. But we do have this season to get through. And we're going to start with NASCAR because there's not a lot to talk about there. So we'll start with that first. A lot more to get to in Formula One. So that'll be the bulk of the program this evening. But NASCAR was in Homestead, the best mile and a half on the schedule for the Dixie Vodka 400. And Chevy locked out the podium with Kyle Larson, Ross Chastain, and A.J. Allmendinger in the top three. We'll get to Larson in a minute, but A.J. Allmendinger on a part-time schedule there in the Colic Racing car, the number 16. He's going to run that car full-time next season. He is a dark horse. I don't even think he's a dark horse. I think he's a favorite to make it into the playoffs next year because we have the 6 road courses. We know A.J. Allmendinger is going to win at least one of them, and he has really stepped up his game on the ovals. So I really believe we will see him battling for a championship in his first year back next year.
There we go. I'm back. Somehow I got muted. It absolutely would not surprise me to see him in the playoffs. Like you were saying, we've got 6 road courses, and he is a threat on any one of them to get a dub. And I mean, what are the chances next year that we have 16 winners? Probably not necessarily as high. So the Dinger could even points his way in. I mean, if he doesn't finish top 5 in a road course, I mean, he might as well not even show up to it because that's just the type of consistency he has. And I could see him pointing his way in on the off chance that he doesn't win one of those road courses next year.
And don't forget, we have a street course in Chicago, and I think he's the only one in the Cup Series of the full-time roster that has ever run on a street course before. So when we get to Chicago, do not be surprised if Allmendinger is topping the timing charts in practice and qualifying because he's going to show up and show out.
Unless we get Project 91 and Justin Marks gets some F1 guy in there, like a Danny Rick or something. Of course, if Justin Marks wants to win in the Project 91, he's got to get Checo because he's been on a tear for street courses.
Yeah, we'll see what time they have because that's actually during their Formula One season, and that gets complicated with contracts and everything. But seeing Checo come over would be fun. I still want to see Lewis Hamilton drive a NASCAR at some point. Hopefully he will get an opportunity, especially with his career coming to a close eventually, although he is talking about going for a couple more years, but we'll see. We will see. But it was a Chevy lockout of the top three, and Chevy was successful there at Homestead. We know Toyota's got some changes that they have to make for their nose. They're going to get the most help from NASCAR on that next year, but more on that later. Ross Chastain, Trackhouse Racing, he is a driver right now that I think going first, I think he's going to get to Phoenix. You cannot sleep on him. He had an opportunity to win this race on Sunday, but Kyle Larson was just far too strong, leading 199 and 267 laps. But of the playoff drivers coming into this round, I think Ross Chastain is the strongest. I will not be surprised if he wins his first championship in a couple of weeks. And for a driver that had a rough summer getting into it with people, he has really buckled down and shown that he is a fine race car driver.
Yeah, I think we definitely saw that. Chip Ganassi tried to give him a chance, then the whole DC Solar thing happened.
Yeah.
Um, but Ross proved in those lower series that he is a wheelman. He does have what it takes to win races. And after a little bit of a transition period, getting used to sorry, someone's falling asleep on me.
Hmm.
After a transition period, getting used to these cars and the way they race and all that. I mean, I think Ross has the potential to be a multiple championship winner in the Cup Series, and I think he's going to have a long career in the Cup Series too.
Yeah.
And I
This
I think
team,
this will be his first championship of what I would imagine will be a couple.
yeah, he is definitely, or Trackhouse Racing has definitely become a career revival racing. I know Suarez had a good run as well. He should have been here if it wasn't for the issues, losing his power steering at the Roval, and good play on him for finishing that race. I don't think I would have made it because Suarez was struggling, but Ross Chastain won a few races this year, had a chance to win this one. Probably my championship favorite going into Phoenix, but man, Kyle Larson, he showed up like a man possessed at Homestead. 199 of 267 led, wins both stages, easy breezy, vintage, 2021 vintage Kyle Larson performance at Homestead.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like we were kind of talking about in the pre-show, we both turned it on after the Formula One race. But he led almost 200 laps at 260, and that's he was the car to beat all day, and at the end of the day, nobody could beat him. So, good performance, and if he didn't have that one bad round, I mean, we're talking about Kyle Larson as a repeat champion.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the playoffs. You cannot have three bad races. And people want to complain about the format. We're not going to do that tonight. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing, which is making these guys get on their toes for all 36 races. Because Kyle Larson kind of cruised in. He wasn't as dominant as he was in previous years, but he kind of cruised into the playoffs. Got to the second round, had three bad races, out of there. Chase Elliott dominated with consistency over the regular season. He has thrown away almost his entire points advantage in each of the 3 rounds of the playoffs. Somehow has survived. But as we go into Martinsville, Chase Elliott, 11 points back. He is good at Martinsville. We don't know what the new tire is going to do, but he cannot go in there feeling safe.
No, absolutely not. I mean, anything can happen, especially on a short track, and he's only 11 points to the good right now. So I mean, you're talking about a stage 1 exit, and he might be not in the championship 4. I mean, if he survives, he's got a good chance of making it, but Martinsville's Martinsville, and anything can happen at any time, and we'll see. But I think the only person going into Martinsville who feels comfortable with where they are right now is probably Joey Logano.
Yeah, because he's locked in, so he can pretty much do
Yeah.
whatever he wants in this race. William Byron and Denny Hamlin, they're going to have a fight on their hands. They are five. Williams 5 to the good. Williams in fourth, so Denny's got to make up those points. And Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, Chase Briscoe, especially Briscoe with that penalty for the race manipulation, they got to win. That is the only way they get to the championship four. So you're going to see, I'll say, two drivers that are calm this coming Sunday with Logano and Chastain. The 6 remaining playoff drivers are going to be at each other's throats the entire race. And we might see somebody take the trip to Spin City, and NASCAR is going to have to, they're going to have to make some decisions, because with what they've done in Vegas, they have now put the gauntlet out there that if you intentionally spin somebody, that's a race that you're going to miss. If somebody puts the bumper to somebody of these playoff drivers and knocks somebody out of contention and they get into the round, are they going to be willing to keep the consistency and suspend the person that spun them? Because you've already laid it out, intentionally spinning somebody is a week vacation. What do you do now? Because you got to be, my thing is you're going to have to be consistent, and you're going to have to explain that at the driver's meeting. Because if you don't, you've got some problems.
Yeah, there's only one driver in that instance you wouldn't have to explain your decision to, and that's the guy that benefits from it.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have however many other drivers there are asking some serious questions, and my hope is that we don't get any that situation where NASCAR has to make that call. I really hope that we don't have to get there. But we'll see. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I mean,
Stranger.
at one point, Robin's racing, but if you can't, and I don't know if intention goes into what they consider intentional wrecking or not, but I don't need to rehash this, but I think the issue is Bubba more or less admitting that he retaliated and being so open about it. That's, I think if he would have said nope, something was broken, I lost control of the car, I don't think he'd be suspended last week.
I mean, he said something broke, but I mean, Ray Charles saw what he did. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, he just hooked it straight left and
Yeah.
turned into the 5. Now, we know how bump and runs go at short tracks. Sometimes they move somebody up. Sometimes they spin them. NASCAR has now put themselves in this situation to where they're going to have to make a decision if someone spins them. To be honest, unless it's blatant, let it go.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you save yourself. Because if you try to get ticky-tack with it, you're going to cause F1 level problems, and we're going to get to them in a minute. So if it's like what, I think that was when Kyle Busch was trying to turn Harvick, or he ended up turning Harvick, something like that, you got to call it. But other than that, just let it go.
Yeah.
So we will see. And unfortunately for Chase Briscoe, if you saw the news earlier, the race manipulation penalty, the 50 points, the $100,000 fine, and the indefinite suspension for his crew chief were all upheld in appeal. They have one more appeal to go, but it is not going to help them this week. They have to win, or they're not going to make it, because they are basically a full race, nearly a full race behind. It is win, or you do not get in for Briscoe, and it's unfortunate. And look, Tony Stewart can be as mad as he wants. It was on audio what he said, and you can't take that chance when NASCAR can listen to all the radio.
Yeah, it just goes back to, something that we say, you know, when people do stupid stuff, usually somebody says, something insensitive or that they shouldn't be saying. And, we've said this on our show multiple times, Daryl, is it's 2022. Everybody's listening.
Yep.
Right. And that's the way these teams, they know NASCAR is listening. You can download the scanner and your fans are listening. I mean, imagine being one of the fans hearing this race manipulation go on. They're probably thinking, like, what the heck? So I feel bad for the fans, who that's kind of an awkward situation for them to be in to hear that over their phones.
I mean, everybody can hear it. Everybody's got a scanner that, as you said, either at the track, on your computer, or on your phone. Everybody can hear what's going on. So you can't do these type of things that you used to be able to get away with in the 90s because everybody and their mother can hear you. And now you've cost yourself a chance at a championship because you decided to try and manipulate the race. And people will say, well, they used to do that all the time, and they did. Hendrick used to bring field fillers for the last race of the season to get in so that their driver wouldn't fall behind a specific points total to lose a championship. Heck, go watch the 2003 Truck Series finale at Homestead and how that ended. Like, straight up manipulation. There are like 5 or 6 IWX trucks, and one of them accidentally crashed into one of the championship contenders. It was a mess, but after Spingate, we said that is not okay anymore. And that, that's just what it is. So we'll get racing in Martinsville. You can watch that on NBC as we get ready to end the 2022, or getting ready to end the 2022 season with the Xfinity 500. But we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and get into Formula One. The U.S. Grand Prix is safe as the number one Grand Prix in America. And I'll talk about that on the other side of this break here on Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' the NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers, the bite of the San Jose Sharks, torture of the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors that we still believe. Then take you across the bay to the rise and grind of the Oakland A's. I've got you covered on college ball from the Cal Bears to the Stanford Cardinal, so that no matter what, reppin' in NorCal sports is always reppin' the Bay. So if you bleed red and gold, or you're looking to keep an eye out west in them thar hills, don't miss me, Gina G, on reppin' in NorCal sports. Catch me every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have your fandom repped harder than a trio of defenders guarding Stephen Curry before his buzzer beater is Gucci.
Taryn Rodriguez there in the chat said, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And it's reference to Chase Briscoe, and I absolutely believe that as well. Welcome back, everybody, here on the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your feed for all that is sports. Daryl and Christopher here with you this evening, and before we go on with Formula One, we would be remiss if we didn't mention that there was a terrible loss in the Formula One community over the weekend as and I'm going to butcher this last name, and I apologize. Dietrich. I'm going to find out how to pronounce this, but the co-founder of Red Bull, the drinks manufacturer, passed away on Saturday after a long battle with an unspecified illness at the age of 78. Didi, one of the visionaries of bringing Red Bull to us, helped start Red Bull Formula One, which became one of the main advertising arms of the Red Bull company and really the driving force into the extreme sports arena that we have seen Red Bull pretty much dominate over the last 20 years. And Red Bull did good by Didi taking the win in Austin, but everyone was racing and celebrating with heavy hearts there in Austin.
Yeah, and I mean, it's something that broadcast and other podcasts have mentioned, and it's just continuing that on. But there are a lot of Formula One careers that owe a lot of Formula One drivers that owe their career to him, giving them a shot in his cars, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 8 people on the current grid have driven for Red Bull at some point, whether it be AlphaTauri or whoever coming up through. I mean, I think it was 8. I mean, you're talking 8 out of 20. That's a big number.
Yes.
And so a lot of people raced with a heavy heart on Sunday.
So Dietrich Mateschitz passes away at 78, and we're going to take a quick moment of silence for him, and then we will get into talking about yet another win for his brand in Austin with USGP. And in that United States Grand Prix, there at the end, it did look like Lewis Hamilton there on the hard tires was going to pick up that long-awaited first win of the season. But Max Verstappen had the medium tires and a whole lot more straight-line speed than that Mercedes has had this year. Was able to make up the difference, even with a painfully slow pit stop. Verstappen was able to come back, took the lead a couple laps before the end, and cruised on to the victory. And there's not many more superlatives I can give it at this point, Chris. Verstappen has just been the class of the field here in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. And yep. You know what's funny is you said Verstappen and he walked right over and pointed to him like the on my computer. Yeah, that's Max. Good job.
Papa.
Nope, that's Max.
Henry is joining us this evening, Chris's son.
It's been a team effort though. Strategy, pit lane, and the driver himself. It's been a real team effort, and as a result, they picked up the constructors, and Max is the driver, and double championships for a team that's performed every race, and that's why they're the champions.
And now they're going into Mexico City coming up. They're going to hopefully get Checo a chance at picking up the win, but we'll continue with the U.S. Grand Prix. Was another fun race. The crowd was absolutely packed. Give me 1 second here. The race was absolutely packed all weekend, and there was a lot of concerns that the U.S. Grand Prix would not be, or would be diminished with the Miami Grand Prix and the Las Vegas Grand Prix coming up next year. But honestly, looking at how that crowd was full, all the celebrities, all the pomp and circumstances, the United States Grand Prix is not going anywhere as the premier Formula One Grand Prix. It is where the renaissance of Formula One in the United States began. It has really become a major event there in the Austin, Texas area. It has been embraced by the community. And you can just tell by the way the grandstands are packed and the cheers as the cars went off into turn number 1. That race is here to stay. And there is no way that Austin is not going to be off the schedule unless something disastrous happens at this point. But I think we're going to be A-okay there. And there's really nothing to really discuss about whether or not Austin is still going to be important. And because I don't think you can dilute the product in a country with 340 million people in a country as large as ours. There's more than enough people around the country that can go to each one of these races, especially with them being as spread out as they are, with Miami being in May, this race being in October. We might have some troubles for Vegas, depending on where it's going to be on the schedule. I think it's going to be near the end, if I remember correctly. So that's going to be in November. So we'll see how that goes. But Chris, I think the USGP is here to stay. Some people are concerned, but I think it is still the mainstay.
As long as Formula One is a sport, it's not going anywhere. That's just the way it is. Sorry, I'm going down to the room where I actually do this now, so carrying you with me here.
Yep.
The USDP certainly is not going anywhere. It's just too popular. I mean, 440,000 fans or something like that. I mean, that is an astronomical number of total people over the race weekend anyway. But give me a second. It's going to my audio here.
All right.
Sorry, I'm just getting hooked into my setup downstairs. Yeah, it's not going anywhere. The other two races in the United States can kind of fade out, but the USGP at COTA, it's not going anywhere.
No. And speaking of this race, there during the pre-race, and we'll come back to what happened in turn 1 in a moment, there's been a lot to do made about Martin Brundle, about Brad Pitt blowing off Martin Brundle during the interview. This is the second straight year we've been at Texas and something like this has happened. I know Meg Thee Stallion got called everything but a child of God after she blew off Brundle. These celebrities do not owe us an interview just because they're at a Formula One race. I'm just going to put that out there. They are fans just like us. And some of them might not be. They're just there for the glitz and the picture. Who cares? They're just there to watch the race, take a couple of pictures. If they don't want to talk, that's okay.
See, and I think that's where fuck.
We'll give Chris a moment to get his system up. I don't think the actual microphone is coming in.
You got me now?
Yeah, we got you.
I don't know what just happened. Sorry.
We're good. We were talking about
yeah, no, I had
just get recalibrated.
I had just opened an adult beverage, and I'm not sure what happened, but it just fell off the table. My mic fell on the ground. My mic is now covered instead of adult beverage.
Oh no!
My floor is covered in said adult beverage. My Alex Bowman front fascia from the Watkins Glen is covered with said adult beverage. It's ugh. Yeah, I think that the celebrities are there for the clout. They know what they're doing. Um and it's controversial, but I think they should be available for interview. You're there, you got invited onto the grid, right? You don't just get to go there. You got
Mm-hmm.
invited. And therefore you should have the decency to repay Formula One, and they're not going to ask you a hard hitting question. Hey, who are you rooting for? Lie and say Mercedes, right?
Mm.
Lie and say you don't even have to answer these questions remotely truthfully. Are you having fun out here? Oh yeah, having a great time. It's I think it's a little absurd that these celebrities are unwilling to take part in um the overall festivities. You're there for the clout, so just do your interview that is no hard hitters and just be done. Other Now you're just getting bad press for being, and pardon my French, that douchebag who won't talk to Brundle.
Well, the situation with Pitt was they were being called to the anthem, so he was trying to get up there. I know Brad Pitt's got a they're actually setting up to film a Formula One movie. Lewis Hamilton's production company actually has some part in that as well. Cannot wait to see how this movie is going to go. Not a lot of, I don't think they've really given a lot of details on what they're going to do just yet. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But my thing is, my concern is that looking at it, yes, they are there. They are there with the teams. They do the social media stuff with the teams. They'll come in, they'll take some pictures. So it's not like they're not repaying everybody else, but I think we put too much stock into that grid walk. Sometimes, they got places to be in this case with Brad Pitt. Now, Meg Thee Stallion, I don't think she know. I want to be as nice as possible when it was with that one. I don't, she didn't know who Brundle was. And that somebody probably should have briefed her on who that was before she went out there. That is, somebody dropped the ball on that one. But Pitt was more of a time thing where they have to be up front for the opening ceremonies and the anthem before they get going. And Brundle's just throwing them the questions. And Brad's trying to be nice, but he's like, I got to go. So you kind of wish that happened earlier in the grid walk, but can't really control things when it comes to how that works. It's just people got to calm down, though, when folks don't want to talk, or in that case, couldn't really stay to talk to Brundle for a while. I think some of the fans are taking it far more to heart than Brundle ever did, so... We just got to work.
Daryl, I'm just on the floor.
No, you're good. I know you're trying to clean up the spill over there. So we'll go on from the walk to what happened there in turn number 1. And Carlos Sainz was on the pole for this race. And as I told you, Chris, at the start, this was a microcosm of the entire Formula One season for Ferrari because everything looked great. They were in line for a win. And then they go to turn 1 and everything falls apart. Russell, I don't know if he didn't see that Sainz was going to cut in on Verstappen to try and take the lead back. Just drove right into the sides of Sainz, spun him around. A water leak that they discovered as they were bringing him in caused Sainz to have to retire from the race. Russell got a 5-second penalty, and it's just unfortunate that a promising day that Ferrari has needed for months now, yet again, comes to nothing. While we wait for Chris to come back, I will just elaborate for a bit. As we've seen with the other tests and all year, between the pit stop issues, the strategy issues, reliability issues, Formula One or Ferrari has just not had a fun 2022 campaign. It just feels like they could not get out of their own way. And as we talked about in this special episode last week, they had a car that was capable of winning the championship, and they squandered it. And now at this point, you're just trying to save face, and you can't even do that because Carlos Sainz, unfortunately, going for the win, doesn't make it through turn number 1. Got spun, this time from no fault of his own, and ends up with a DNF for the trouble. And that was after Leclerc ended up with a grid spot penalty because of an engine change. They had a pretty good qualifying for Ferrari, Chris. It's just tough for Ferrari to find any sort of positive to end the season on.
Yeah, and it's just the moral of the story for their whole season. They just can't get all phases of the game to come together, unfortunately. And it's, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it other than to say it's par for the course. It's just always something for them this year. And it's not always self-inflicted in this case. And there have been other times this season as well where something's happened. It's not self-inflicted, but it's just the moral of the story for their whole season.
Yeah, at this point, just try to get out this season without further embarrassment and try to get next season, boys, because this is not working. Speaking of try to get next season, let's get into this now. What was Lance Stroll doing? Off the second safety car restart, they're coming down the backstretch. Stroll is defending from Alonso. Alonso peeks to the inside about halfway down the backstretch, and Stroll throws the latest left move to the, or jink to the left I have ever seen, and Alonso goes flying. Goes flying through the air. Somehow finishes this race, by the way. And causes a massive accident. Second safety car. Look, we're getting rid of Nicholas Latifi at the end of this season. We know that because Lawrence Stroll owns Aston Martin, Lance is probably not going anywhere. But man, I wish Lawrence Stroll didn't own Aston Martin, because Lance, I'm sorry, the jury has come back. You are not a Formula One driver. He has not been good. And I think it is enough time to say that he's not going to amount to a lot in this sport. And if Aston Martin wants to be successful, they're going to have to plan for a life without Stroll's son driving the car.
But Daryl, remember that one time in the rain?
Oh, for God's sakes.
That's the argument.
That was 2 years ago. No. It's coming close to 2 years ago. Like,
I thought it was longer, but
no, it was Turkey when we went back there because of COVID. Like,
yeah, maybe COVID's just thrown my perception of time.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago. No one cares. He hasn't done anything since that moment. And everybody tried to make that he's a rain specialist. No, he's not. He just got lucky on the intermediates.
Yeah. Sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah.
And Lance Stroll did.
Yeah. And I'm still trying to figure out how Alonso's car did not have suspension damage from how hard he hit the ground. Like, what do they make their pieces out of, and how do I get them on my car to deal with the potholes here on Route 301? Because that is incredible that car was able to finish the race.
Didn't Lewis retire at Spa for the exact same thing, or did he not retire?
No, he retired for the exact same thing because he went in the air and landed on the ground.
Exact same wreck.
Yeah. It's just wild that he was able to bring that car out of it.
Yeah. And those cars, sit so low to the ground, they bottom out when they hit.
Yeah.
So if anybody at home wants to know what that feels like, just jump in the air and land right on your butt. That's how it feels.
Trust me, he felt all of that when he hit the ground.
Yeah.
And it
had
had to sting. Yeah, 200 miles per hour. He felt all of that. And you saw when he climbed out the car, he was sitting on the tire at the end of the race, kind of reevaluating life there. And he ended up finishing 7th, but then got a 30-second penalty because of a protest by Haas on the mirror hanging off, which the FIA deemed was a penalty because the car wasn't in good working order. However, that mirror had been hanging off the entire race, and the FIA never called it until then and dropped Alonso to 15th. This is what it gets into, what we talked about last week with consistency. It shouldn't take y'all to the end of the race to make these calls, and it feels like the last 5 or 6 Grand Prix, we have been waiting until the end of the race for the FIA to make a call on something.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It goes back to Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
You can go all the way back to Singapore. And they just, like I said after Singapore, I think it was Singapore that I said it after. Maybe it was Japan. It was probably Japan. If something happens with more than 5 or more than 10 laps to go in the race, once the race is over, it's all null and void. You can't go back on it, blah, blah, blah. And like with this penalty, if it was something truly egregious, like, I don't even know. Undoing your safety belts or something. Fine, but
yes.
It's a freaking mirror. It was on there perfectly fine to start the race. And then you got some moron who wrecks into the car, and you want to. I can't even make sense of it. I know what Haas was doing, and I guess if I was in the same place to benefit, I would do the exact same thing. So I can't really fault them for it. But it's just one of those things. It's just the pettiness in Formula One is just unreal, and frustrating.
Yes. It was just, everybody knows how I feel about the officiating with Formula One. It has been an aggravation of mine for a while. The 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix did not help. But they've got to be more consistent, and they've got to make these calls faster. With all the cameras we have, all the technology, every car has a camera on top of it. The T-Wing camera, that's an FIA camera that the TV broadcast uses. They have access to all 20 of those. You could see that mirror on the T-Cam, and you never call it. It is up to you to make the decisions. It shouldn't be the teams coming to you after the race to make these calls. You should be the one making the call because you are the sanctioning body. You are the one that makes these decisions. It shouldn't be up to the teams.
And that goes back to something that actually Engine Mode 11 had said, was that at the end of the season, the way that, it always comes back to Abu Dhabi. It really does. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that the FIA cited was that Michael Massey was kind of overworked on a race weekend. So they said, we're going to have 2 race directors. We're going to spread the workload around to lead to better officiating. And what we saw this week, and what we've been seeing the last couple of weeks, is the same thing that led to Abu Dhabi 2021, which would be overworked race directors.
Yes.
So if you don't want repeats of these things happening that you say was a gray area, you don't want to admit fault, but you can't not admit it either, or you can't totally say you didn't have any fault. You need to live up to what you said you were doing to rectify the situation. If that means you have two race directors, then you have two race directors at every race. But right now, I think they're only running one.
Yeah.
So call up whatever the hell the other guy's name is, get him a ticket to Mexico City, and put two race directors in like you said you were going to.
What happened to the VAR system that they were going to have? Remember that? That was in something from the Abu Dhabi papers, and just that never happened.
It's one of those things that you just tell people what they want to hear, and then they'll forget.
Yep.
It's true. It's human nature. You tell us what we want to hear, and all you have to do is just set a date far enough ahead in the future, and we'll forget before it even gets there.
Which is what
It's
they
just
did.
basic psychology. They played us, and for most people, it worked.
And some people try to keep them to task, but who knows, you know? They can't get out their own way, and I don't know why they continue to make the same mistakes, but they've decided this is what they're going to do. And they're just going to hope that nothing goes wrong this time. We'll see. But one last topic before we go to nearest the win and get out of here. Tomorrow we're supposed to find out what the deal is between Ferrari and Red Bull and the FIA when it comes to this breach of the spending cap by Red Bull. God only knows what it, how much it was or what it was on, or whether or not it was actually for Latifi's lifetime Red Bull budget. But we're going to see what the penalty is. I don't think we're going to see any points taken away from the 2021 World Championship. Thank God, because we don't need to legislate that championship anymore. So I don't know what the penalty is going to be. I don't know how they're going to make it to where they satisfy the teams, because they sound pretty pissed about the whole situation. And Formula One's got another fine mess on their hands that they've created by themselves, and it sounds like it was created because Formula One decided to change the accounting rules halfway through this season. For God knows what reason. Chris, we lose you?
Nope. I think I'm here.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, we got you. I was just talking about the situation with the FIA and them changing the accounting rules, and that may have caught Red Bull out. And my whole situation is, why did you change them now to begin with?
Yeah, and why does a rule that you enacted 3 months after teams submitted their budget, why does that count? Like, they had already submitted the budget. You can't just make rules up after you've already been in the books. Like, that's not fair at all. Like, that's horrendously unfair to have everybody's books and then start making new legislation, more or less, or new rules after you've already seen the books. That's completely ridiculous. And we've got that press conference, and I really hope that it's the FIA admitting that they effed up. Do I think that's the case? No. But if there's one team that's not going to let the FIA get away with that publicly, Red Bull, but Toto's a finance guy. Just ask Christian. I mean, Toto wouldn't put up with this either. But Christian is going to drag you through the mud in the media to get his way, and we'll see how it goes. but the whole situation is sketchy on both sides, right? Mm-hmm. Both sides, neither one are going to come out with a squeaky clean record off this. But my goodness, what a mess this whole thing is. And I don't know which way it's going to go, but I can see it going either way. And that's a kind of a cause for concern in its own way.
Yeah, we'll see how they figure it out. Hopefully it goes well for hopefully, I don't know how they're going to explain it to the other teams, but now they've Formula One's created another fine mess that I don't know how they get out of, but we'll see how they figure it out. But it is time for Nearest the Win. Mexico and Martinsville this week. We will start, of course, with Formula One, and we were talking about this at the beginning of the show. I think Checo is going to pick up the win this week, and they are going to have a fiesta in Mexico when he pulls this off.
Absolutely. I am right there with you. There's little doubt in my mind that Checo wins this race. It's a home run as much as I've ever seen one.
Last week, I picked stage winner MTJ to take the win in NASCAR. I'm going to actually take Denny Hamlin to win his way into the Final Four.
Who did I pick last week?
You picked Reddick.
Back in 2018, he won the battle. And then he wound up winning the war. I think Joey Logano goes 2-time in the round of 8.
That would be, I don't know when's the last time we haven't had multiple winners of playoff drivers in the round of 8. That would be crazy if that happened. But we'll see.
We'll find out.
Yep. So we will see what happens this week. Make sure you get your picks in. Hashtag Nearest the Win with who you think is going to win this weekend. Get your picks in before the start or before engines fire on Sunday to figure out who's going to win these penultimate races of the season, or the closing races of the season. And of course, make sure you get in on the Patreon on IE Sports Radio. $5 a month gets you a shout out on all 32 of our shows. And of course, higher tiers gets you things like free merch, access to the Podcasting University, and your chance to be on our flagship show, The Defining Moment. So please make sure you sign up. And thank you so much for making sure that IE Sports Radio continues to be your direct feed for all that is sports. Thank you to our 4 supporters: Bay Area Raised, MLO's Great, Key to the Gate, and one anonymous Patreon user. And of course, if you missed any episode of any IE Sports Radio show, make sure you keep it locked to where anywhere podcasts can be heard, and the YouTube repository, which has copies of every show from the entire life of the network. And of course, keep it locked to our social media pages. I'm at DK Jr. 12. Chris is at Fiji Sims. Michael, unfortunately, is under the weather today. It's at Michael_War25. Make sure you follow the IE Sports Radio pages on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course now TikTok. So that will do it for this episode of The Extra Mile. For Chris, I'm Daryl. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.